We have a special episode of Lost in Translation today. We'll call it our Under the Lights, our football special. Football season's back, high school football, college, professional, everything. And we're joined today by Derek Fullerton from Maritime, and someone who in these parts probably doesn't need any introduction. Three-time Super Bowl champion with the New England Patriots. Ted Johnson, now a career in media and has a really special connection to Maritime as well. So, guys, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.
Pleasure to be here. Good to see you guys.
Yeah. So, sort of a question just right off the bat that both of you guys, obviously, different levels of football, but both have some football background. But like this time of year, you know, Ted, I know you went on to things that were so much bigger than like high school, but the fall, the sort of return to the field, the first game of the season at all different levels. There's probably some stuff that is the feelings that are always there, no matter what level that you're at. What do you think of when you think of this sort of the start of the season again?
It's always there's such a rhythm to my my life that it all was kind of predicated on my football schedule. So you have off season, end season, off season, end season, and then you just think of any calendar year in those terms. And even though I've been 18 years removed from the game, I'm retired. I've been out of the game 18 years. I still kind of look at my life as off season and in season. And so in season, my workload gets a lot greater. I'm just doing a lot more TV, and my radio commitments jump up. So. Which is great, but it's weird. This time of year, I start having vivid dreams about practices, and I think I have these dreams where I'm still playing football in my dreams, always around football time. So the dreams come back, just the feeling of everything that goes into a football season all comes back, and so I love it. That's the rhythm I've been on for a long time. I'm comfortable with it, and so I just hope when it comes to the Patriots perspective, I hope that we have a compelling product to talk about and to cover. That's all you hope for, is that you see progress and the team working towards something. First game didn't go so well, but that's the hope anyway.
You know, I kind of want to plug really early on because Maritimes, they've sponsored here where we record Lost in Translation is at WCTV, and our high school football coverage is sort of the staple of what we do here, and the sponsorship from Maritime and other sponsors like it is what's enabled us to cover like local high school football in a way that really no other station does, as far as docuseries and the kind of like cinematic highlight videos we do and just everything. And so one, sort of say thank you just right off the bat for that, and then also sort of ask you, Derek, because it was really through you, what sort of motivated you guys to say, yeah, all right, I'm sure you guys get sponsorship requests all the time for different things. What was it about this that made it a worthwhile sort of sponsorship for you guys?
Yeah. So Maritime Behavioral Health Management, we manage and operate 6 facilities here in Massachusetts. Mayflower Recovery, which is a substance use inpatient detox facility right here in the heart of Wilmington, right next door to WCTV. And then we have Atlantic Behavioral Health here in Wilmington, which is for mental health primary. So if your mental health is your primary issue, you would go there for outpatient services. And then we operate Topsail Addiction Services in North Andover, which is our outpatient substance use disorder facility. And then we have our other mental health facilities, which is Back Bay Mental Health right on the BU campus in Boston, Windward Mental Health in Dedham, and opening next month right in your hometown of Cambridge, your original hometown of Cambridge on Mass Ave, Cambridge Mental Health.
Wow.
So we're doing good things, helping thousands of people, and we're here to help anybody in Wilmington that needs help.
Thank you for all the work you're doing.
Ultimately, we're very fortunate to be able to be in the community with our 2 of our facilities, and just having that community relationship with that. We're just not here, but we want to impact our communities. And growing up in Wilmington as a football player, this time of year I don't get the dreams as much, but when I hear that smell that grass, that cut grass this time of year, it reminds me of stepping on the field. But just being a partner in our community and knowing that like we are here invested in our community, want to help people in our communities. We're not just, a building. We are people that live in the community. A lot of our workers are from the communities of Wilmington and even the surrounding communities. And, just being able to help. When we first built Mayflower Recovery, we told the community we're going to be impactful in the community. We're not just going to be sitting back and helping people. We're also going to be reaching outside our walls of the building and helping people. And that was kind of the thing. And, growing up playing Wilmington football, there's a little natural connection there. My brother played at Shawshene Tech, a little natural connection there. Lost my cousin to an overdose following his Shawshene Tech career, PJ Fullerton. So that was a little personal connection beside the professional connection.
And it's one of those things that, like, Ted, you might be the same. I know when I played in high school, so I know it's the same for you. Like, there wasn't Instagram. Nothing was digitized. It was like VHS tapes.
That's right. It was.
I have,
it was.
From basically nothing from like my high school career, which is one of the most memorable things to me, even though I went on to bigger and better. It's like there's something about being young and you're still living at home and you're still, even no matter what you've been through, you still don't know everything. You haven't been out in the world. Like, everyone's experiences are different in high school and people go through a lot of stuff. So I'm not minimizing that, but you're still a kid, even, and so I wish I had stuff to hang on to from that I could look back on. There's a couple of photos but
what's funny? Can I just real quick on
that?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, when I first got to Colorado in 1991, it was like the first year of VHS tape. So, in the late 80s, it was the film projector, and if you wanted to watch a game, you couldn't fast forward. Like, you had to run through the whole tape, right? You know what I'm saying, Bobby? So it was just harder to watch and game plan and to prepare for your opponent because the technology wasn't nearly as advanced as it is now. So now everything now is digitized, like you said. But I want to see a team all of their third down runs in the red area. There's boom. I got all the plays in 2 minutes. Boom. Before you would have to fast forward to that 2 minute situation and then watch it, and then rewind, go back to what you were talking about before. So it's just funny from a technological standpoint how far the game has come and how much easier it is. They take all these plays home on laptop, and when I was playing, I would take VHS tapes home, and then at the end of my career, it was the discs that I would take home. And then soon after I retired, it got more digitized, but it was crazy. 1991, it was the first year of VHS tape, and look where we are now.
It is crazy. At the Shawshene Tech game last Friday, which was the first regular season game that we've covered, it was the first week of the regular season here in Massachusetts for high schools. So we're out there, and we did get our drone up to get some shots for like a nice cinematic edit and everything. But when you talk about even Shawshene Tech, they're not a prep. They're not like this wealthy school. They're a technical high school. And even Shawshene Tech is like a public tech school. They had a drone going over the whole game, like getting shots for their scout for the next week, and it's like when I was in high school, I just remember like our defensive coordinator at one of our games. There wasn't even bleachers on one side. There was like a hill, and he was like up on top of the hill watching things. And now it's just like schools have drones going over the games.
No, it's crazy. It's a lot easier to to study your opponent, to scout, to learn. I mean, I think for sports, Bobby, I'm sure basketball is this way. I mean, it's very visual. We're visual learners. We need to see ourselves practice and playing and learn from that. And so the angles you can get now that they offer you, the ways in which they can kind of give you the information, it's easier to digest it than it was back then. So, a lot easier to study the opponent nowadays with the new technologies.
So for me, this conversation, I'm probably the only one here who hasn't played high school football. Okay, I was much more interested.
Your knees would make a real big target.
Controlled climate, exactly. Yeah. I was a cut block waiting to happen. Okay,
right.
And when it was allowed. Right? So I was explaining to Ted earlier how his team, specifically he, made me respect the Patriots. This was back in 2001. Right, you go. They're in Pittsburgh for the AFC Championship. We've got the best defense in the league. We've got Jerome Bettis. We've got Cordell Stewart, former teammate of yours. Yep. And we are rolling. we are rolling, man. There was no way in the world they were supposed to beat us. And they came in there and put on a clinic. I specifically remember asking myself, I said, who the fuck is this guy? Right? Because you were hitting busts, and there were very few guys who could hit busts, right? And for negative yards. And I'm like, oh my God. I love Brewski and those guys. But when I saw you hit bus, I said, "Oh, these guys are for real." And then you go and you beat the what is the greatest show on turf? Was that what they called it?
That's
Rams?
what it was. Yeah.
I said, "Oh my gosh, man!" And Wayne, my mentor, I mean, he was a huge Patriots fan, and I'm like, "Oh, these guys, these bums, they can't beat my Steelers."
Yeah.
And you just ran through everybody. I think it was Oakland first you beat, right?
That's exactly right. The snow game.
Yeah. Tuck rule, all that other
all that stuff.
So this is when I really started getting into football, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh!" But you. Man, I
appreciate that, Bobby.
I'll tell you two funny things, because
the
first year you guys won the Super Bowl. So I grew up in Cambridge, so right across the river from Boston, and it was the first time the Patriots had ever won, and but two things. So in high school back then, whenever we play, I remember this. Whenever we'd play someone that had like a noticeable neck, everyone would be like, "That Ted Johnson motherfucker out there!" Like about the. Anytime we played someone with like a developed neck. But two,
you know what that is, real quick? That's John Madden. Yeah. John Madden he made my neck a thing when we played the Green Bay Packers in the Super Bowl in 1996 season. It was 97 calendar, and we played the Green Bay Packers, and he would talk about my neck, and that was it. That was it. So John Madden talking about my neck in that Super Bowl 31 is what made, I guess, my neck a thing. So sorry to interrupt.
No. The other thing it takes me back was that so that first year you guys won, like, it was such a big thing because Boston and Massachusetts have been so starved for, it'd been since the Celtics in the 80s, and so I didn't go to school that day. I went to the parade. Everybody went to the parade, and I remember walking to the parade, running into one of the deans from my high school who was like, "Shouldn't you be in school today?" And I was like, "Shouldn't you be in school today?" And we just went our separate ways and kept going to the parade. So that was a really vivid memory I have down at the City Hall there.
That parade was great. Yeah. I mean, I'd never seen anything like it. I mean, I was just, we had those 90s teams that I was on. Yeah. We were knocking on the door, and with Drew, and it was it, and we were starting to build something, but when we came out of nowhere in 01, and it was today's the 24 year anniversary of 9/11.
Yep.
So that happened in the 01 season, and that
was it that year.
Yeah, it was that year, and so we became essentially America's team, right? And the Patriots, and U2's playing at halftime, and they're. It was a magical season, and to beat the Raiders the way we did in the snow game, and then to beat go to Heinz Field and beat the Steelers with the bus. And by the way, Bobby, I always love to say this is Jerome never had 100 yards on us in all the games. You never.
Doesn't surprise me.
I love the bus. I love the bus because he talks so much smack. And he gets a 4-yard gain and he's doing a side shuffle, and we're like laughing because he's not going to get 100 on us today. We tell him, but so to go those two games that led up to the greatest show on turf game was a magical year because we came out of nowhere. We weren't supposed to win. And for the country going through what it went through, it was cool to be the team that won the Super Bowl that year, and in such when we were all just kind of raw from the events of 9/11. It was, but oddly enough, today is the 24-year anniversary of that day. Man, never forget that day.
Me neither. I remember being in school and then rolling in the rolling TV and just watching in disbelief. School getting let out. Back, this is before smartphones, like the cell phone, you had to dial everything on. It was one of my first cell phone, and phone, you couldn't get anyone. Phone lines being down all over the country, and that was. It was one thing I'm proud of, and I'll do a afternoon radio show on WEIs in the afternoons, and I know I'm going to talk about this today. So I was a player rep for us for 3 terms, so 6 years, and one of the proudest moments I had was being a part of a vote that we all the players of all the player reps in the NFL in 2001, after
just days after 9/11 happened, we all voted to decide whether or not we wanted to play Sunday. The commissioner left it up to the players to decide, do we want to play Sunday or do we not want to play Sunday? And a lot of the leagues didn't know what to do. Baseball didn't know what to do. Do we play the games over the weekend? Like college football didn't know. And we've all voted to not play. And, you know, in the past they have done events like JFK assassination. They decided to play this the Sunday after, and they regretted that decision. And you know what? We made the decision not to play, and it was the right decision. It felt, you know what? Just let's all think about what happened as opposed to playing football so that we can, you know, kind of divert our thoughts from 9/11. No, let's really kind of absorb it and feel the whole thing. And all the other leagues followed suit. College football didn't play that weekend, and it was the right decision. So I was just proud to be on that vote, and I feel like we made the right decision. It was appropriate when we weren't all playing that day, and so I just wanted to add that little bit of info in there.
Let me follow up on that for a second, because to me that tells me exactly the type of individuals who are representing their teams. So the reason I'm saying that is because less than 5 years ago, right, we went into COVID, okay? So the sports world at that time was shut down, right? Athletes were basically called non-essential, okay? And what happens in that space is, or what I believe happened in that space is that the athletes themselves actually had to take a look at themselves. That I am no longer the hero that everybody makes me out to be. I've got to be a human being at this point. I am no longer that guy that everybody's looking at. I've actually got to look at myself in the mirror. Who do I, so instead of, since you can't go outside, the only thing you can do is look inside, right? And I think that was probably one of the best moments. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's leading up to, and hopefully eventually we'll get into it, is the age of NIL. So where it's all about me, and you coming from 3 Super Bowl championship winning teams, you understand about the role that, you know, I think, was it Belichick that said, do your job?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So there's that personal responsibility, right, of you bringing the best version of yourself, and then the teamwork that has to be involved so you don't let your team down and you don't let yourself down.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And again, I know this it's a long thought, but when you said that you guys didn't play, there was a specific reason behind that.
Oh, yeah.
And that reasoning means everything, right? And I think that's what it's a lot of what the kids are missing today, in my opinion, right? The ability to sit back, take account of what's actually going on around you, and reason with themselves. Now, maybe they can't. I don't know. But again, I would leave that up to you and what you guys see these days. So I'm interested to know. All right. I'm interested to know what do you see in today's game that has changed, and what you think could make it better?
Well, you know, there's a lot. I'd say, I mean, the money's changed. I can tell you that. I mean, we want to just get right down to it. I mean, the first off, when I retired, the salary cap was $80 million per team. It is now $270. You know, so that's a big jump. You know, so the money's definitely changed. The scrutiny's changed. There's more ways to quantify football now, more than there ever was. There was analytics weren't a thing when I was playing. I mean, there was situational football, and you'd break down what teams like to do in the red area, and then on 3rd down and 3 or less, and 3rd down and 3 or more, all these different situations that numbers played into, you know, kind of helping you decide which calls you wanted to make. But it's gotten even more analytical now. So I would say a big difference is the way you quantify players at each position. Like there's grades offensive linemen get now, pass blocking, run blocking grades, where they didn't have those types of grades or metrics when I was playing. So now there's a lot more information out there. We all can see the games. They provide all 22 on NFL.com, so I can watch the coaches copy that the players watch and the coaches watch. I can watch as well. So there's just so much more information that the fan and the people covering the teams have that they didn't have when I was younger. So Analytics is a big part. The money is a big part. I would say how the game is covered has changed drastically. If you wanted some people to get to know you, I had to go on WEI. I had to go. That was the only station, right? There was only one station. And I'd have to talk to Ron Borges. I'd have to talk to Kevin Mannix. I'd have to talk to Mike Felger, and because they were reporters for papers. Now social media guys can show who they are, their brand. They can do their own branding through their own social network platforms, which we didn't have at the time. So there's a lot more ways to generate your brand and to enhance your brand and to make money in different ways than there was when I was playing. So those are some of the big differences from when I played versus now, Bobby.
It's wild that you have. I mean, there's so many people that have podcasts but like there are players like that are still currently playing and also doing their own podcast at the same time.
Oh, I know.
Did you ever imagine when you were playing a player while his career was still going on in season, also produced recording a podcast?
It was the old school thinking would have been like you don't care enough about your football team.
Right.
I was kind of the thinking here, and that was when we had Belichick. That was the feeling was you better project this image that the only thing you care about is playing football. If you wanted to have there's the problem with a lot of football players is we don't want to feel like this is all we got to offer, and guys want to feel like there's a little in a world in which it's all about uniformity and being the same. Guys wanted to have their individuality too and express themselves in their own way too, and so that was the struggle. Is some guys wanted to just focus on football, and some guys use football to project in themselves in other ways too. So that's kind of still the struggle with today's athletes. Still, I think a lot of athletes, want to be more than just athletes. They want to be fashion designer. They want to be real estate owners. They want to be movie stars, and so they do these podcasts. And some are naturals at it, and then some not so much. So that part has definitely changed.
So I do want to get into, because I haven't brought up yet, because it's just been such a sort of natural conversation, but the connection between the two of you through Maritime and through how did both of you get, what can both of you guys say about how you got connected and how both of you got involved with something like Maritime?
Yeah, sure. So in general, Maritime Behavioral Health represents 6 facilities. And those 6 facilities are for substance use disorder and mental health. A few years back when Mayflower opened up here in Wilmington, which is our inpatient detox substance use facility, we wanted to work with an ambassador that has the same journey of someone going through what individuals in our facility are going through. Through a common friend of ours, that common friend connected us with Ted. Said, hey, you have to reach out to Ted. His story is impactful. His story is the same story as your individuals going through the facility, but he has much of a broader audience and can reach many more people. We met with Ted and really saw the authenticity that he has. He isn't just his former athlete. He's a real guy like he is today, sitting before us right now, sharing his story, which people can resonate for. We knew from our first meeting, Ted is our guy. And Ted visited our facilities, went through our facilities, saw that our facilities, and I'll let him speak on that, were a match for him in terms of what he was representing, right? So that was kind of like the genesis of it. And then from that, three plus years, we've done radio campaigns and marketing campaigns, and now he's our official wellness ambassador, and we go speak to communities and organizations and businesses, and he tells his playbook of wellness. And that's from the days of being a football star to the dark days of addiction to his redemption story. And that is the path of someone that comes out of our facilities, is the redemption story, right? And him and being able to share it to a much larger audience is a representation for Maritime.
Can I follow up on that
Yeah.
for a quick second? It's a question for both of you. So maritime deals with a lot of mental health aspects of. Is it just athletes or is it just people?
Anyone in general.
Okay, great. So my question behind that would be, we had just started talking about, athletes now aren't simply athletes; they're entrepreneurs. They've got all these roles to fill, and I feel as though that we're asking children to make adult decisions. So when you go through all the changes that the psychological changes that sports brings, okay, or that life brings in general, my thought process, and I'd like to know what you think about this, is that those things are going to happen anyway. And as part of 3 championship teams, there had to be a philosophy that you were willing to follow that was going to keep you grounded while all the other things around you were going on. So what type of philosophy was that? I know do your job was one of them, right? Because in my opinion, just from playing, I had to keep remembering, because you're a young player, you've got all the shine, right? Maybe you got to work your way up a little bit. Now you get close to being a veteran, you found your groove, and you're playing really well. Then all of a sudden you're the older veteran who has to make room for the younger guys, right? So what I had to do was I had to remember, why am I here? Why am I doing this? Because the day I didn't want to practice anymore was the day I stopped. So I can't do this anymore because I don't want to get up and put in that type of work. So, so what type of philosophy is that we could possibly start to instill in the younger generation that moves them away from the instant gratification and more to that old school, I got to work through this?
I think it's a good point. I think the hardest thing is to teach kids kind of a professional mindset. That the true reward is in the daily grind, and the discipline. I would say teaching discipline is the most important thing. You can be motivated, but if you're not disciplined, then you don't have anything. And discipline to get up every day, to go put in the work every day, to show up. Whatever you got that day is what you got. There's gonna be days when you don't have a full tank. Oh well, just you do the best with what you got that day. So I think just the professional mindset, the discipline, embracing the grind, and embracing the process as much as embracing just the result. We they all want to be a starter, and then you all want to win, but there's steps to getting there. Don't forget all those steps, and what it takes is really a disciplined, diligent mindset, professional mindset for young kids, and that's how it was. In sports, for some people, like sports was life or death for me. What does that mean? That seems like an over exaggeration, but I came from a less than nurturing home. Some would say, an abusive home, emotionally abusive mom. She was either really enmeshed in my life or absent from my life. So it's a childhood that isn't that isn't that different than other guys' childhoods that played in the NFL. A lot of guys that play at the higher levels come from dysfunction, come from abusive homes. And as Derek knows the story, I always say a football team becomes like your pseudo family. Coaches become pseudo fathers. Your teammates are like brothers. You're held responsible. You have accountability. That those aren't things that you find at your home, but you find it being part of that team. And so, sports in general, football in particular, can offer so many amazing benefits to a young man who maybe doesn't have the infrastructure at home. He can get that infrastructure that the sport and the team provide that I was drawn to, and I think a lot of kids are drawn to. So, but it's really just teaching kids that they got to get up every day, and if they want something bad enough, embrace the grind, and and be diligent and be disciplined in what you do. And to me, that's the most important thing when it comes to how a young athlete should think.
How did you get into football, and was it? I mean, I know you played other sports
Yeah.
when you were younger, but like once it was football, was it always football from the start, and everything else was sort of, or how did it begin with you in football?
So football, my love of football was rooted in the Houston Oilers back in the day. My dad had season tickets to the Oilers.
Earl Campbell.
Earl was my guy, 34. He was that was the first number I ever had, and I did radio in Houston for 6 years and got to meet Earl a couple of times. And he's I was a captain on our 03 team when we played the Super Bowl down in Houston, and Earl Campbell was the honorary captain for the coin toss, and to be out there with him for the coin toss was, talk about emotional. I was emotional, but so that's where my love of football started. What happened was I could tell that I didn't have good support at home when it comes to school education. I wasn't a very good student. Neither of my parents went to college. Neither of them were really pushing me to pursue college. But I wanted to make something of myself. And so how do I get to college and make something of myself? I decided to turn myself into a football player, and that's what I did. And I worked out before and after school every day. The biggest donation I ever made during my football career was to my high school weight room. I bought a bunch of weights, and they named it after me because that's where it all started for me. I was one of those guys that if you've ever seen the movie All the Right Moves with Tom Cruise in it, he literally played high school football to get a scholarship to college to then make something of himself from there, and that's all I wanted to do, and that's what I did. And I was not a highly recruited player. I went to a high school in just north of San Diego called Carlsbad High School. And I always say we're known for our pro surfers. We got an excellent surf team. We win state every year. And we're not known for our pro football players, but I turned myself into a football player, and I got recruited by some great schools. I was very fortunate that a coach at a rival high school told the Colorado coach about me. And he goes, "You need to see this linebacker down at Carlsbad." And Brian Cabral, who was the linebackers coach at Colorado at the time, recruited me. And I went to Colorado, and Colorado was just playing for national championships. They played for a national championship in '89 against Notre Dame, and then in '90.
Was that Bieniemy?
That was Eric Bieniemy, yeah. And they won it in 1990, and I was the following class. So I was very lucky in that I had the right, kind of things happen, which the right people saw me and liked what they saw. I had the support of the school to work out when I wanted to work out. I turned myself into a football player. And my biggest goal was to get a scholarship, and I got one. And then my story goes from there. It's I never saw myself as a professional football player until at the end of my collegiate career. My head coach at the time, Bill McCartney, we have these 5-minute meetings every spring, going into every spring football season. And going into my senior year, my head coach, Bill McCartney, says to me, he's like, "Ted, you can play on Sundays." And I'd never heard that expression.
Right.
And he goes, you can play in the NFL. And I never really let myself think like that. A lot of guys that were going to Colorado at that time and in college in general, they picked schools that gave them the best chance to go to the NFL. I didn't think like that. I just wanted to get away from the dysfunction of my home life and get a degree and then go do a normal job. I never looked at myself as a pro until Coach Mack put that thought in my head. And by him doing that, everything changed. My senior year was by far my best year, most productive. I ended up being the runner-up for the Buckus Award that goes to the best linebacker in the nation. I was a second-round draft pick. And it all just flipped so the bigger point I want to make is if you recognize talent in somebody, tell them. Because you don't know what your words can mean to that athlete. It can send them on a path that they wouldn't have gone if you didn't tell them that. So if you believe in somebody and you see special talents, go tell that athlete, because that might be the thing they need to hear to set them on a better path. And so I was grateful for Coach Mack recognizing that, me telling me that, and then me doing something with that. And so that was I never aspired to play in the NFL until Coach Mack put the thought in my head, and once I knew that he believed in me, it just set me on a different course.
So let me follow up on that for a second. So you mentioned an emotionally abusive mother, right?
Mm-hmm.
So coaches, I think we've got a lot of talk now about how coaches should communicate with players. Right now, you're in the world of football.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so things are going to be said that are going to hurt your feelings, right? From both teammates and coaches, because you're all trying to get something done. So where's the line? Because it can feel abusive depending on who the person is.
Yeah.
So where's the line in communication? Because sometimes, I don't know. I wouldn't, all my family, they were, let's say, blunt. All right.
Yeah.
Either you're going to do this
Yeah.
or you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. My college coach was blunt. I didn't understand that as a kid. Right. But I knew when I became a professional that everything he told me, because I was so accustomed to him speaking us in a certain way, it was easy. Right. When another coach was trying to speak to me, and it may have been in a different language, but I understood what he was saying. But the way he said it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was raised by my grandmother, who was born in a different America. Okay,
Yeah.
she's 1924, so you can imagine she just grew up tough. Okay,
Yeah.
So now how do you translate those things to kids who may not understand?
It's hard. It's definitely hard. I would say the what an athlete should know, and I think being blunt. A lot of people are turned off by blunt people. I appreciate it because at least they're being honest. Like I don't think athletes should ever a coach should string an athlete along. I think being honest with an athlete is the best way for a coach to communicate. Don't tell them one thing and then do another thing. Right. Don't lead them on. Like if they have something they need to work on, go tell them. If there's something that you see that they're doing that they should be patted on the back for, go tell them. But I think without being demeaning or dehumanizing, if you can give critical feedback without being those things, being honest, I think is the best way to go with a coach. Don't mislead your athlete and tell them that that they can do something that you really don't think they can do. Make sure you tell them exactly where you think they stand, and I think that's the one way to communicate from a coach to a player is just doing the best you can to always be honest. And really what players want more than anything is an authentic coach.
How was Belichick?
How was Belichick?
Yeah.
He was
a couple hours.
Yeah. He was different than any other coach. Like I had 3 coaches in my 10 years. They're all Hall of Famers. They all led so vastly differently than each other. Bill Parcells drafted me, and he coached his style. Pete Carroll for 3 years. Yep. He had his own unique style, and then Belichick for 5. Belichick, the key to the Patriots dynasty was that he had the best player, Tom Brady, as a poster child for how he wanted to run his team. And it was a 6th-round draft pick who fought for everything, who wasn't given anything, who had to beat out the $100 million first overall pick in Drew Bledsoe, scratch for everything. And so he could coach Tom hard. He could pay him less than other quarterbacks would, and Tom would accept it. And so that set the ecosystem for the rest of the organization. Okay. So if the best player was getting bad contracts and the best player was getting coached hard, then can you imagine what the last guy on the bench was getting?
Right.
Yeah.
So that kind of set the tone. That was how Bill. Now you take Tom out of the equation, and Bill's not as effective as the coach because his hard coaching, it just and his nickel and diming you with your contracts. If you're not winning, it's not worth it.
Right.
And if you got to be winning for the Bill Belichick style of coaching to work. If you're not, it's not a fun place to go to work, and that's kind of Bill in a nutshell.
Okay,
if that makes sense.
I wanted to ask because you made me think about when you were talking about all the steps sort of along the way before even realizing, hey, maybe I could be an NFL player, like at the end of your college career. And you talked about, it was the reason Colorado even saw you was because of a rival coach said something to you. And so even we talk about players or people being self-made, but there's always so many little, you don't even realize it, forks in the road in your life that if you took a left instead of a right, things go differently.
Yep.
And that there's so many people that play a role in all of these different journeys that people take, even if you don't have a great home life or, that sort of, support system. Just high school making the weight room available for you to go there and work out, and a rival coach looking out for you instead of being like, we don't like getting beat by that kid, so I'm not gonna. Do you ever think about, like, one, sort of all the people that maybe played a part in this, and two, what if any of those connections weren't made and you didn't wind up at Colorado where your life could have potentially wound up?
I have thought that. Yeah, what's that? The sliding door kind of theory. It's very true. If that rival coach, is the head coach for Ramona High School, doesn't tell, Brian Cabral that I'm there, because when Colorado came to recruit me, that got UCLA's attention, and that got University of Washington's attention. Before that, it was the University of Pacific's recruiting me, Arizona State, San Diego State. Not the biggest schools.
Yeah.
But when a big school like Colorado comes in, then all the other big fish are like, what are we missing?
That's right.
So there is a lot of truth to that. And so his name was Mel Galley, Coach Galley. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for telling Coach about me. I'm very grateful. But I'm grateful to Coach Brian Cabral too, who's still resides out in Boulder, who was a coach there for 25 years, who believed in me, who saw something in me and gave me a chance to play at a big time school. So there are people that come in your lives. I had a strength coach at Carlsbad that helped me learn how important strength training was for my position. If these people don't enter my life, I don't get to where I am, and I'm kind of scared, to be honest with you, what would happen if I didn't have football. Like, football is in a weird way, because I retired because of concussions, and there were some things that turned me off about the sport. But overall, I owe everything to football, because if I didn't have football, I wouldn't have had not only the rings, but the job I have now. I'm living this life in media here in Boston that is all predicated off of my time here as a football player. So I'm very grateful for the game. And it took me from what would have been, I'm not so sure. I think without it, it's scary to think what my life would look like, because I was truly someone that needed structure. I needed accountability. And in men, a lot of us, we get our self-esteem through our professions and through our jobs. And so I'm no different. So a lot of my self-esteem, self-worth, self-respect came through the game I played, and that's, I think, the big hard thing about when you transition out is when you don't have the game, who are you?
Yeah.
And that opens up a whole nother, and that led to trouble too, and problems. So you can put too much into it if you don't have the right balance in your life, that when it's all gone, and it ends for all of us. As much as we like to think we can play forever, we all know you can't. That's a day of reckoning if you don't have that part of it in perspective. But that's almost every athlete has to go through that.
Yeah, I'd like to kind of like do on the flip side, and this isn't more like a shout out to me, but it's kind of like perspective to your questions about childhood, about having people be authentic as a coach, and then like your path afterwards. On my flip side, I grew up in a similar story as Ted, except for genetics.
They play a huge part.
Yeah, but I grew up in a Gold Star family. My uncle, a Wilmington, was one of the first boys killed in Vietnam.
Wow.
Has his monument at Silver Lake still. And that trauma ran through my dad's family, which led most of my dad and his siblings into alcoholism. So I grew up in an alcoholic family, where thankfully, by the grace of God, and my dad was able to give up alcohol about 40 years ago, and have a redemption story of his own. I love my dad. He's still alive. He just turned 75. But football was my way out. And in Wilmington, we didn't have Pop Warner the first part of my childhood career. It was in we had to go to North Reading.
Okay.
My mom wouldn't let me go to North Reading because the times that D team and the C team were church time, so I had to go to church. But by the time Wilmington got Pop Warner, was B team level, and it was 2 p.m. So I could go to church and then go to the game, that's when I started my football career. But football was my way out of the house, like our house life with my dad at a time where he was a blue collar worker here in town working at Mac Tire, and then, you know, Saturdays the Bruins and Bears, right? And but, you know, going to football and having that outlet to get rid of my internal, you know, pressure and stress was amazing. And having a team and coaches around you that basically were there just for one mission and not like, hey, what's going on. But also, when you're in a tight community like Wilmington, coaches know. Mm-hmm. Coaches know things.
What's going on at home.
Yeah, they know. Like, they talk. Most of the coaches that we even see nowadays or back then were probably in your parents' age, so they know what's going on. So you having those coaches, you know, hey, my nickname's Fully. Hey, Fully, get out there. Like, hey, you're going to start this Sunday, etc. This Saturday, I want you to work on this. But they also knew, like, you know, giving me those opportunities was like, hopefully you'll shine when you get those opportunities. But then the authentic part, like going back to the genetics, I remember being in the athletic trainer's room, getting stretches, senior year, halfway through, and I was applying to like Mass Maritime. I was going to play D3 there, UMass Dartmouth, and Coach Harrison, I said, yeah, I'm going to the next level, Coach. And he looked at me, he's like, you better gain like 30 pounds of muscle if you're going to play at the next level. And it like,
being blunt.
It hit me like, what are you trying to say? I thought I was a good player for you. I was a middle linebacker. But he was being truthful, right? And then on the
doing
flip,
you a favor.
He was doing me a favor. And on the flip side, having an authentic teacher in Wilmington High that pulled me to the side and said, hey, Derek, like my academics, like before my dad gave up alcohol, my academics are all over the place, right? Because school was not fun to go to in junior high, right? And you were a ticking time bomb, right? You just wanted to fight out at recess with somebody, right? But like in my junior year of high school, I had this Mrs. Beckwith, give her credits to Mrs. Beckwith. She pulled me aside. She, you're like one grade off from a B to a B plus to going into the National Honor Society.
Wow.
And I would have never known that and put that a little extra effort in. I've changed my academic career, when my home life changed, and I wanted to go, back in our era, going to college was the next step for most people in this town, these small community towns. It wasn't, my sister was the first one to go to college in our family, and I was the second. But it was that influential thing that a teacher told me, kind of like when your coach, Max, said, you can play on Sundays, you can get in the National Honor Society, that I actually focused and realized that my football career was coming to an end, but my academic career was just starting at college, and that, eventually leads to why I'm sitting here representing a behavioral health care, because I went into the sciences and the healths at college, and it's kind of those people that you open this door, close that door, and that's why we're sitting here.
I want to ask both of you guys what you would say, because being in sort of the spaces you're in, and Ted, you have your own, you talked about sort of like redemption story, you had the rise, you have post football stuff, and then that you said with your own dad, you saw when he stopped drinking, that I think you used the word redemption story as well. I know in my own life there was a pretty meteoric fall, and then rise, putting my life back together after some things happened. And what do you guys say to people that kind of feel like, oh, like I'm beyond hope, I've fallen too far, in the addiction space, just in the life space in general? Because I don't feel like most people, it's just a straight upward trajectory from the time they're born until the day that they move on to the next whatever's after this. Like, what would you guys say to people that feel like, it's just like, I'm sort of beyond that, like that point of being able to put things back together?
I would say to them that it's so much better coming out the other end. Like you're gonna be so much happier. You're terrified of what's sobriety might look like or what being well might look like, but it's worth it. It's worth going through honestly the hell you got to go through to get. You got to fight for your happiness. You got to fight for your mental health. You got to fight for your sobriety. Like you can't just hope that it comes. You gotta work at it, and it's worth it when you come out the other end. It just is. And so and I think what is your purpose in life? If you have kids? I mean, if you're talking to somebody who's dealing with addiction and they have kids, do it for your kids, man. Find something in your life that's worth putting all that stuff to the side and getting your health right for them or for that, whatever it is, whatever passion it is, whatever person it is. Identify that and use that as motivation to get healthy.
That is so cool. That reminds me of, and I remember the first time I read the story. I was in Spain, and I love Greek mythology, right?
Yeah.
And they were talking about Sisyphus, right, who was obligated to pushing a boulder, up the mountain, for eternity. And they were saying how, and they were changing the story around, and I forget the author's name, but Sisyphus, instead of feeling sorry for himself, what he did was he said, I own this. I've got this. And he started owning the mountain. He started owning the boulder, only to have to do it for the rest of eternity. But the fact is that, like you said, he owned it, right? So if we're talking, and I speak to a lot of young athletes, and they always think somebody's hating on them, and things like, and I'm like, look, man, I think the way we explain things to kids is so important, because one of the things I'll do is I say, look, I don't need you to have an open mind. I need you to have an active mind. Because if you're open, you're going to let anything in. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're going to have to choose, right? Which path do you want to follow? Don't give me an excuse, because everybody's got them. Everybody's got a story, right? But when you've got people in front of you that genuinely want to help you, right? Do you have it in you? Just like if you're going to, when we were talking to Lamar Reddick, he's the AD over at the Milton Academy, and we were saying that these kids, the administrations of these places are interviewing you to see if you have enough in you. They're not going to raise you. You've got to come in with the DNA. You've got to come in with the necessary tools to say yes. And unfortunately, everybody's not going to make it.
Yeah, well,
right?
Yeah.
And that's the most unfortunate part about it. But if you're not starting with the candid conversations with the kids, then they've got no chance anyway, right? I mean, you going through the addiction and everything. I mean, and Sam, you're talking about redemption stories. And that means that the first thing you did was take a look in the mirror and said, no more.
Yeah.
I'm done with this shit, right? And now you got to fight it every day.
Yeah, you got to get to that point. And everybody gets there differently. You really has to be up to that person to decide whether or not they want to get better. As much we all can want the person to get better, but the person, themselves, it's up to them to want to do it.
Yeah, Bobby's given me a quote many times, or he gave it to me once, but I always use it over and over again, and it applies so many different places. But like, you can't want it more than they do, and it applies to so many different things. Whether it's greatness, whether it's getting clean, anything, you going to college, whatever. Like, it's like you can't want it more than that person wants it. Like, they need to want it for themselves. I know
Can
that.
I just expand on that? The one thing about that person not wanting themselves, needing to want it, but they also need to know, like, they're not alone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That there tends to be this individualism in recovery. Like, I did it myself. I own my journey, right? But sharing with somebody that you're not alone. Look at, I was in this, you were in this, right? And then when that person's down on their knees, like, it isn't you're on your own and you're looking down on them,
Right.
we get down on our knees with you.
That's right.
Right?
And I think
and that's,
beautiful.
we're going to
Yeah.
walk through this journey
That-
with you and get you to that redemption story, but you're doing this alone is the old way. Doing it together, we're going to walk beside you and support you and be your crutchers. And that's the importance of being in community and therapy and being around people that have the like situations, so that they know when that guy's down, I'm going to pick you up.
That is a critical
Beautifully said.
critical clarification, because support systems make all the difference in the world. And so it's both. It's like you need but like sort of like I mentioned with Ted earlier on, that like all the different people that you don't even realize at the time that play a role in helping you to get to where you're going, that not going it alone is totally critical to so much. You know, Ted, I know that we've talked for a while, so I'm trying to be conscious of time and all that. You got a whole bunch going on. I did sort of want to ask, because I'm getting to your own sort of fall and recovery, but when you look back on your time in the NFL, because it allowed you to get to a place in life that you may not have had a chance at otherwise.
No question.
There also was a tremendous toll on your body, a tremendous toll on your physical and mental health, concussions, everything that came with it. How do you look back on that time in the NFL? We don't need to go season by season, but just overall, I'm sure there's a lot of complicated feelings you have when you look back on it.
I have a ton. There's so many. Sometimes it's hard for me to just enjoy what I was able to accomplish. Like you got to fight this, but I didn't do this and I didn't do that, and I wanted, it's like that's tough. You got to let that go. That's one of my challenges, Bobby. Maybe you can relate. Like there's a part of you that you go, man, why didn't I play 12 years, and why didn't I do this, and why didn't it's so I just have to let a lot of that go. To be honest with you, and so for me, I look back and I just think there's so much I learned about myself. I had a coach that challenged me where I just I had to learn to defend myself. I've heard some hard lessons, and my dad always says the best lessons you learn usually come at your own expense. And so I've had money, I've lost money, I've been considered the best linebacker, in the NFL, and then I was, at the end of my bench because Belichick had it in for me for some reason. It's like I've gone to Super Bowls and won. I've gone to Super Bowls and lost. I've had a lot of different feelings. I've been the man and I've been the outsider. I've never been cut from a team, but I've had a lot of different emotions, and I've been on top of the mountain, I've been at the bottom, and I think that's served me well post career. That I think I can draw from a lot of those experiences. I think a lot of football players that struggle after football, they don't tap into the things that made them great when they played. And a lot of it is shame. A lot of us football players, like, we were really good football players.
Yeah.
And then we get in the real world, it's like we don't have the skills to do anything else. And so it's a very intimidating, scary world out there. And so that is a problem for a lot of guys. But I wouldn't trade my decisions or my experiences in for anything. I was drafted to a team that was considered the greatest dynasty of all time. I mean, you think about that on draft day. There was only 30 teams at the NFL in 1995. Now there's 32. But so I could have gone to 29 other teams, and I went to the team that had was the spawned 6 Super Bowls, and I was part of the first 3. So I'm a part of this. There's 23 guys that were on all 3 Super Bowl teams. Those first 3. There's 23 of us. There's 8 of us that were on that Super Bowl team in '96 and lost to Green Bay, but we're on all 3.
Wow.
So I'm part of this kind of elite group of guys that started something here in New England that I'm very, very proud of. And I'll say this, one thing that came out of football for me, I retired because of head trauma. I retired because of concussions. We didn't know the ramifications quite yet. I retired in the February of '05. And then CTE was discovered a year later. So, and then I became an advocate for concussion awareness and education. And so I've kind of turned what was a bad situation for me then into something good now by bringing that issue to light, talking about my story. It burned some bridges, unfortunately, because the NFL, they don't like people talking about concussions.
Yeah, you took some hits.
You know, but players should be informed of what the risks are, fully informed, and then let them make an educated decision on whether or not they want to play football. They weren't doing that. They were hiding information. They weren't telling us the truth. So players weren't making informed decisions. They are now, and I'm proud of being partly responsible for that coming to light. And so there's a lot of great things that I love about football. Some I not so great, but overall I love football and everything it's given me.
You know, I guess I should say sing your praises a little bit. There was a song by Simon and Garfunkel, "Sound of Silence."
Yeah.
And what it meant to me is that, you know, if you kept your voice silent, you know, there is no more existence for you.
Yeah.
And I can only imagine the stuff that you were going through when you're fighting an entire organization that has the attention of the world, right? That shield has the attention of the world, and you're saying, no, I am not going to be silent on this. You know, yesterday, you know, you had a 31-year-old man killed, right, murdered, and now he's got 2 daughters and a wife left at home. Why? Because he chose to tell his truth.
Right.
That's the only reason why this happened, right? So, and it's going to be tougher for young players. Like when I grew up, I was watching, and I mean, it was history at that point, but, you know, I'm watching the Summit, which was Ali and Jim Brown and Kareem and all those guys getting together, you know, not really knowing each other, but getting together because they had something they needed to say. To be willing to fight against a machine like that, man,
It takes a lot of courage.
A lot of courage, man. And
Yeah.
I mean, I think that, you know, any young man or young woman listening to this, you know, they have to understand, especially coming from you, that they are going to have to develop their voices, because if they don't, someone else will speak for them, and they're going to hate it.
Yeah, I always put a little plug in. My nephew Jaden Fullerton, he's a fullback for Wakefield High.
Shout out to Jaden.
Wilmington will find out in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Get ready, Wilmington. Number 27, he wears number 27.
Salvo, shot.
He wears number 27 after
They've
my...
had Wilmington's number, I think, every year I've filmed them so far. So,
Yeah. He wears 27 in honor of PJ, who I mentioned earlier. Ted and I took Jaden to breakfast last year, and Jaden was a sophomore last year. He ended up with like 22 touchdowns, over 1,000 rushing yards, really good player. And we were having breakfast, and I surprised my nephew Jaden. I'm like, hey, want to go to breakfast? And Ted was, and he's like, is that Ted Johnson that you've been telling me about? He's like, yeah. And so he was a little nervous. But anyways, we're having breakfast, and basically kind of the point of the story was he was off a game for a concussion. So he was like home that week, couple days, and that's why I was able to bring him to breakfast. And you know, Ted, instead of being silent, the sound of silence, he was like, hey, listen, man, you should rest that brain. Like, the worst thing for a concussion is the second concussion right after, right? And, you know, for a rising star football player, right, most people would just like, yeah, okay, whatever, I'm going back. I don't want to lose my spot. I'm the part of the team, right? I get a call 2 days later from my brother. It's like, what'd you guys say to Jaden at practice? I mean, at breakfast. And I go, why? He's like, he's sitting out this game, this next game. And I'm like, we told him the truth, brother. And he's like, all right. He's like, I trust you. And that is kind of like how Ted like impacts the youth. Like, he was honest and said, hey, man, resting that brain a little longer will be better for you in the long run. And a youth listened to him, and the youth used his own voice to go to his dad and say, I'm going to sit out another game. That right there is the story.
That's the story. That's
it's trying to teach kids to be your own advocate. You know, there's going to be times where your parents aren't going to be around for if there's a boundary that was crossed, or you feel uncomfortable in a situation, and you feel danger, to be your own advocate and stand up for yourself. And that's and to take care of yourself. That was the overall, that overreaching message is what I want to get to young kids, is make sure that you are your own advocate and you advocate for your health and wellness.
That's something that I have 2 boys that are 9 and 4, and me and my wife, we really try to work on that with them. It's like self-advocacy. It's so important that having a support system makes all the difference in the world. And part of that support system is getting people to the point where they can be self-sustaining and take care,
exactly
and,
right, Sam.
and that self-advocacy is such a huge thing. I wanted to ask before we go, just sort of, it's such a heavy topic, and so I know you couldn't cover it all in one podcast anyways, but this is sort of a 50,000 foot view of like, just what are you willing to say about the fall, and then what it took for you to pick yourself back up and get to a better place? Sort of what you can kind of go in any direction with that, but what are you comfortable saying about that?
Yeah, I would say, the fall, there's a lot of shame around it. There's a lot of resentment around it. And that's what you have to conquer, that resentment. One of my favorite sayings is, resentment is like drinking poison, but waiting for the other person to die. You're just, so you got all this resentment, and you got all this shame for things you've done. What I think is important for anybody that's going through struggles is that, you can decide to change tomorrow. Because you've messed up your life up to this point, that doesn't mean you can't start tomorrow, and start down a path that is a healthy path. That is something that, and I will say this too, there's people that fall off the wagon, they have relapses. That doesn't mean you got to stay off. You can get right back on track, so don't let one mistake snowball into 1,000 mistakes, right. Which was how I used to think. If I did it once, it's like, screw it, I get loaded one time because something happened, then I'm just gonna go do it every day, right? There was a lot of gray. It's not always black and white. So I would say the shame, resentment, let that go. People that hold on to that are gonna be in big trouble, and I've let a lot of that go. I would say just learning as much as you can about yourself, your family dynamics, learning about how maybe the way you were raised, how does that impact your decision making? Do you have do you have an unhealthy way of seeing things based on your child? Just really understand your childhood, how you were raised, and how that impacts the decisions in your thinking today. I think people getting to a really good understanding of that can help themselves. There's a lot of people who have unresolved, traumatic, toxic memories that they've never dealt with. Yeah. Those things don't just fix themselves. You got to address that, and you got to do a lot of self-critiquing. And a lot of people don't like to look at themselves from a critical standpoint, but that's really what it takes to understand the way you think and the way you behave is, I think, so important. A lot of people don't take the time to do that. In this world, we're all go, go, go. Sometimes you just need a 5-week treatment where you're not around stimulus, you're not around family, you're just you thinking about your issues and getting professional help, talking to someone. It's the only way you learn. And so I think if I had to just wrap it up in one kind of final statement, that would probably be it, Sam.
It's so hard as an athlete to who doesn't know any better, because you're always taught, you're living in this world of the objective stats, right? And you're always trying to reach them, but then at the end, when you go home, it's all subjective, right? You're thinking to myself, my God, how could I have missed that play? Or, I should be better than I am right now. Yeah. And if you're always taught to win, You know, there's your personal battle, then the one that the coach needs from you. So that balance of having, well, as we've been saying, the right people around you, you know, to challenge you but to encourage you, okay, is so important. And unfortunately, our kids, from what I've seen, many of the kids don't get that because it's still win, win, win at any cost.
Sure.
Instead of learn at all costs, right? So maybe the lesson is sometimes you win, sometimes you learn.
That's the
Learn
lesson.
at all costs.
Right.
And another good point too, I think, is that you're kind of hitting on is be very conscious of your self-talk. Like you sometimes, you know, be your own advocate, but be your own kind of inner coach too. Like you become your thoughts. I tell my kids that all the time. The way you think, if you have negative thoughts and you have, if you think, I'm not good enough, or I'm not, then that's what's going to happen. You got to think positively. You got to affirm yourself.
Yeah.
You got to reframe thoughts. You have to, you know, just have better awareness of what's going on around. Like if you can really change your thoughts, it can really help people. A lot of people have really negative, self-doubting thoughts that consume them and would hold them back from really being the best version of themselves. Affirmations. Wake up, say something good to yourself, read an affirmation book. I think that's a great way to start the day, is just to read something positive, and it gets you on in a way of thinking that sets you on the right course for that day. So you become your thoughts. So how this brain talks to itself is very, very important to your overall mental health and wellness. Is controlling the thoughts, reframing the thoughts, affirming yourself. That'll go a long way.
Yeah, and just having the you know, we always talk about stigma, right? But like, it's 2025 and the stigma has been reduced in getting help, right?
Yeah,
and it continues to get better each year. And I see the younger generation be more accepting to like understanding what help is, because we're talking about it more and we're advocating about it more. But getting that help, whether it's at one of our facilities or any facility or any therapist or whatever, is important, because once they know that there's help out there, which, you know, 30 years ago, trying to find a place to go to, you know, you had to go to a hospital, inpatient, at a hospital, ER, or find a therapist, which was impossible. But there's so many more places because of legislation and policy and just the stigma being reduced, that knowing that it's okay can help individuals find those underlying roots through therapy and address whether they have a co-occurring habit like addiction, or vice versa, their habit supporting, you know, their mental health disorder, etc. But getting that help, knowing that you could reach out to Ted or myself or anybody. Years ago, it was, my kid needs help. I don't know what to do. I'm freaking out. I don't want anybody to know. It's not like that. Like, when you're able to turn around and use that story afterwards, that's what's the beauty of it, because people are now not afraid to talk about their redemption. And that's why Ted stands here before everybody to say, like, you're not alone. Get help, good treatment, good health outcomes. And
it's not only that you're not alone, it's that we're all not that very different. We're all kind of the same. Like, you know, I ask people, you know, I've given talks at Mayflower before, and I ask anybody, raise their hand if you've ever played in the NFL. No hands, no hands come up. And then I said, well, that's where it starts and ends with our differences. Everything else, I'm just like you. I'm wired just like you. I have the same insecurities, the same self-doubt, the same feelings of resentment and anger and shame. We're no different. So I think what's powerful is people that are struggling is knowing that there's a lot of people that are like you. You're not unique in your feelings. Like, there's a lot of people that feel that way, and so there's power in knowing that you're not alone and you're not the only one that feels the way you feel.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
So, as an athlete, especially one that's just played professionally for as long as you have, the atmosphere around you is different than it would be for someone who's not a professional athlete. Okay, the lights are brighter. You know, there's less. You have less room for error, right? And this is your chosen career. You've worked a long time to get to the point that you've gotten to. But so is everybody else, right? And your job, I mean, as a professional football player, is to hit them before they hit you.
Yes,
right?
that was my job description to a T right there. Yeah.
So when getting to that point, there's a certain mentality that you have to have, a certain philosophy, mentality, emotional upbringing that you have that all comes together for you to be able to do it effectively.
No doubt.
You mentioned that your mom, was emotionally abusive. At some point, was that positive in some way for you, right? That you learned to take that pain and use it in a way that would help you get to where you wanted to go. So I'm saying that because you chose professional sports. You said, this is what I want to do. At some point you said yes. So you wanted that smoke.
Yeah.
You received that smoke, right?
Yep.
Now you've got to find a way how to manage all the smoke that comes with it, including the fire.
That's right. Yeah. I think it's a great. So what fueled me a lot to play my position, which was my position playing inside linebacker, was to initiate contact on every play. It's a different mindset than another position, right? And my fuel was anger, and it was anger that stems from my upbringing and the experiences I went through as a kid. And the neglect and the abuse, that was what fueled me when I was young, and that's what fueled me as I got older. And there was times when I could tell, the more I worked on because at the end of my career, I found therapy, the very last few years of and I could see the anger kind of dissipating. And, you wonder, am I going to lose my edge? There's football players that would seek out therapy for their unresolved childhood traumatic experiences and then quit the game because the anger's gone. And so a lot of what your fuel was for that sport is gone. So, Bobby, don't kid yourself. If my upbringing was part of what made me such a good linebacker was that I tapped into that anger, that unresolved anger that I had from all my childhood experiences.
I think every kid needs to hear that, man. Yeah. It's okay. Find a positive way to use it. Don't lash out at people.
Yeah.
And that's exactly right. I was able to use my anger in a way to generate a life for myself. And I think for me, it was I found what I was good at, and I exploited it, which I was good at. I was good at running and hitting, and I had anger, and I had a certain technique that I was perfected, that the stun and separate technique. Derek knows about it.
Demonstrates on me. I don't know.
It was what allowed me to play as long as I did. So I saw an opportunity to exploit what I was really good at and make a career in a sport that brought a lot with it. And so I was very fortunate that I found it.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today to talk. It was really amazing talk, and Ted, an amazing story, and Derek, you guys are doing amazing things through this. So
thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
Great. Thank you
nice
so
to meet
much.
you guys.
Yeah.
Thank you.